Welcome back to another episode of Beekeeping Buddies. I'm Steven.
And I'm Luke.
Oh, man, we have had all of the rain.
All of the rain and all of the
5.5 inches last week.
Chillicothe made the news due to the tornado that went over it.
Well,
Not
that
through it.
Streitner, which is about an hour north and east of us.
Yeah, that was the tornado that actually formed over Chile and then formed over the river. And I got none of the alarms went off here. I'm surprised.
Really?
Yeah, my phone didn't trigger. I was here because it was raining pretty bad, and I didn't need to be out in the bees. So yeah, the weather has been unpleasant, especially considering I think I released our podcast, our last recording, which was 2 weeks when it was just dry, and I released it the day of all of the rainstorms, and I thought, well, people are going to listen to that going, what are you talking about? But we got more rain coming.
We do have more rain. Tis the season of summer thunderstorms.
Yeah,
even though we're in the first or second week of June now. I guess we're second week of June. But the season has continued. I don't know. You have to go back and listen to some of the first episodes of the year when we were just coming out of winter and things were waking up, when we were noting that we were about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time. Well, it turns out we continue to still be about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time.
Although we had a really dry May. I think we had the driest May on record.
We did. My garden really suffered at the start. I lost some tomatoes because normally in May, I don't have to water my garden because we get plenty of rain. And it turns out it was super dry. I lost a couple tomatoes. We replanted a handful of ones, and then boom, we got 5.5 inches of rain, and we were out in the garden today, and it was just going nuts.
Yeah, and it was just it's just been a weird year. I got a really good spring harvest. I have friends across the river that got nothing for their spring harvest.
Well, one of the notes I have on my sheet is sort of the timing of that. We had talked about taking honey. I know I helped one of the students pull a bunch of honey. I went to pull a bunch of honey off of my hives, and I didn't have nearly the honey I had on mine that they had on theirs. And it turns out a lot of mine had swarmed, and because of that, they didn't have the population to really pack it on. Now, they were still bringing some in, but early in the spring, we were on a strong flow. And then probably a week ago, I think we both were talking offline, and we noted that I had put a box on when I thought we were really getting into it, and coming back to it like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, and expecting it to be mostly full, mostly wet, and it was almost untouched.
Yeah, they were in them for mine. They were in the boxes, but not doing anything.
And so that was when we both sort of came to the conclusion that it had started strong and really tapered off really quick for a spring flow, because it got so dry. So all the spring flowers dried up, and so now I'm wondering if this rain is really going to help the Dutch white clover come in strong here in June through the start of July.
A lot of the yards and some of the unkempt yards, I'm noticing that the Dutch clover is still there. It's still blooming.
Mine is.
And so I'm pretty happy that it's still around, because sometimes it'll just dry up and it's just done for the season. So I'm pretty happy that it's still around. I'm hoping that they do. I'll be in them this week, and we'll have a better idea of if that drought, dearth is over.
It's so interesting, right? Because I helped pull 120 pounds. They extracted 120 pounds. You were out to help somebody else pull, and you pulled 400 pounds?
No, off of theirs.
220 pounds.
Three or four buckets. I have to go take a look real close, but it was 3 or 4 full buckets, and I've still got some straining from the cappings tank. Yeah. It was quite a bit. Now, they hadn't taken anything off of spring.
Yeah, but that's what I was still...
And this is still really light honey. Even the stuff that they took was still really light honey. So I'm still hopeful that it's a decent spring pull for them.
But that also brings up an interesting point that we may have talked about in the past, but it's worth reiterating. When do you take your honey?
So
there was some debate about this recently at our
Oh, you're talking about the state of the frame when I take my honey.
Wendy, yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is probably going to have some people yelling at the radio. I take my honey when the honey box, the supers on top are full enough for me to pull that honey, and the water content is below 18%.
How do you know it's below 18%?
So I do a shake method. You taught me the shake method, I think.
I did.
It is this little snap method with your wrists.
It's something that I picked up from my mentor, and I have continued to pass on with my students.
Yeah. So basically, you grab the frame by each side. Usually brush the bees off at first. It doesn't really matter. You're not going to get all the bees off. And then you snap your wrists kind of like if you're like casting a fishing line. That's kind of the and you're really trying to get a good cast in. You snap your wrist down on towards the frame. If you do it right, the bees will fall off. Some of the bees that are on there will fall off. If nectar falls out and it rains nectar, that you're not ripe. That nectar is not ripe. Is still nectar. It's not honey.
Still too wet.
And if it doesn't do that and it's heavy, then I extract it and then I put it back on the hive.
Well, the other way, the refractometers when I started beekeeping, you could only get them from like Dayton and Kelly.
Dayton's still selling them.
Yeah, but they were like $60 or $80 or $100.
They still sell them for that price too.
And that was a really prohibitive price to pay for a really specialized piece of equipment that you may only use literally once a year. And when I say once, I'm not talking all day once a year. I'm talking you put one sample on it, look at it in the sun, it gives you reading, you wash it off, put it back in the case, and put it on a shelf for the next year. You literally use it once. But now they're $20 on Amazon, and any beekeeper who's going to take honey should just pick up a refractometer specifically for honey. Now, if you go to Amazon, you're going to find some that are for alcohol making, beer making, wine making. They have a different BRIX, BRIX scale on them, and they will not read the honey correct.
Well,
so,
they don't go low enough for honey.
Yes.
I have one of those as well. They don't go low enough for honey. And I keep my refractometer out at my main apiary specifically for my guys if they're confused. And the easiest way, if they're confused, I tell them, stick your finger in the uncapped honey, wipe it on the thing, look at it. If it's below 18%, you put it in the box.
I've always had good luck with, they have a tendency to sort of start with the rainbow cappings, the classic rainbow capping look. And they get the thing where
the rainbow cappings is like a bridge. He was. I know what he's talking about because he's making it with hand. It's like the bridge across the top of the frame.
Like you look at the frame and it's a nice little rainbow. The top corners always get sort of capped first, and you'll see that on brood frames and stuff where they'll look down in the frame and you'll think it's nothing but wax, and then you pull it out and it's just a little 1-inch row, and then in the corners it widens out to 2 or 3 inches as a nice little rainbow pattern of brood in the center. But the same sort of thing. They'll start at the top, it'll start capped, and then it'll start working down the frame, and you'll start seeing the cells, they sort of cap from the outside in, and you'll have the cappings that are sort of like just a pinpoint of openness, and that'll typically get from full capped, and they'll get wider. The openings will start small, and they'll get wider and wider and wider as you work down to where it's basically uncapped. And when they're starting to work that all from the top down, that's my sign that even though that frame is not fully capped, it's still good to go.
Yeah, and you can see visually, if you know what you're looking for, you can see that nice white wax just barely on the edges of them. Yeah. And I found that for most of the ones I look at, if your center frames have all of that, because I run no queen excluders, but if your center frames have all of that and they're all the way capped, your whole box is almost certainly capped.
Because you can pull like frame 2 or 8, and those will almost always be completely capped, and the ones that are last to be capped will be the ones in the very center. So if you start in the center one, you pull a center one. Yeah, so it's looking that way.
So when he says frame 2 or 8, you just start from the left side usually and count up to 10 or 8 or whatever you're keeping. I ran into somebody that said I said frame 9. I was talking about something this last weekend. I went to the State Beekeepers Association meeting, and I said
talk about that in a moment.
And I said it's frame 9, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" There's frame 1 to 5, and I said frame 1 to 5. They're like, yeah, the outside frames are 1, the next frames are 2, the next frames are 3, and the next year 4, and then middle frame's 5. And I thought, I've never heard of that before. So, no. Like, I guess frame 2, but frame 2 on the right? However you want to talk about it. So, yeah, it was an interesting...
Yeah, it wouldn't matter if you're starting from the left or the right, which is, I say, 2 or 8, right? Because if you start at the right, it's frame 2. If you start from the left, it's frame 2 or frame 8, depending on...
Yeah, it was just a weird interaction. Yeah. There's different people do things differently.
So you wouldn't necessarily wait until they're all capped. And the other reason why it wouldn't be capped is it's dried down to the right amount, but it's not full. They've decided that they need to stick some more in it, and they don't have it yet, so they're just going to let it hang out as uncapped. And to me, that just because you haven't capped it doesn't mean it's not ready to be extracted.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And there's some really interesting other beekeepers out there that don't even care if it's higher than 18%. They have specific buildings and specific dehydrators built in and fans that blow through that nectar so that they can collect it early.
I specifically asked what their method, because we were listening to this discussion and they had omitted the step where they uncap. And I made a note to ask about it after the presentation. And I said, I noted that you did not have an uncapping phase in your process. I'm like, what are you doing for your uncapping? And the response was, I pull my honey before it's capped, and then I don't have to uncap it. So I don't have to deal with wax. I don't have to deal with trying to separate my honey from my wax cappings. The whole process is sort of eliminated if you take it before it's capped. And it was clear from his process that he had built the process around that, eliminating that one step. And because of that, he had an entire dehydration portion that he did instead to ensure that it was dried down.
Yeah. And I've talked to him, so I have a guy that does my uncapping and extraction for me. That's his specialty that he's gotten good at. He's been doing it this is year 2 now. And I had a conversation with him about uncapping some of this honey that we had just pulled in. And he actually likes the uncapped honey. So he'll test it, looks at it, tests it, does a refractometer on it, and really enjoys the time saved for not having to uncap the honey. Now, he still really likes the perfect cut where you just take the top off and when the
whole sheet.
Yeah. When the honey's capped, you can start cutting and you'll get this nice sheet of wax, white wax.
Fresh first year wax is so soft. The cappings are so nice, and if you're using a heated uncapping knife, it glides through the uncapping so easily, and it becomes a challenge. Can you get the entire frame from top to bottom or bottom to top, depending on how you like to go at it, all off in one long sheet of nice white pure wax?
Yeah, and there is something to be said about that portion of beekeeping.
Now, on the other hand, some of the worst stuff to extract is the second year. Like if
it's dark at all,
and it's been there for a year, and it is the hardest wax, and you're sawing at it, and
the viscosity, like the viscosity is no good because it's so hard. It's just a pain in the butt.
But you don't know because it's just a cap. I mean, you can tell. You kind of tell the cappings will get wet.
I usually pick those.
Yeah,
because there's a wicked looking tool in beekeeping that looks like a comb, like a pick out comb.
Or it's like a table fork that's 3 inches wide and it's got like 15 tongs instead of 3.
Yeah, and they're real close together and they're sharp as heck. And if you slip with it as you're trying to get through this heavy wax, it's not hard to embed it in your hand.
Have you stabbed yourself with it?
Never. Yeah,
I have.
And I don't cuss at it when I do it, and then I have to stop and sanitize stuff, and but you can pick off the they call them scratchers, I guess for the South they call them scratchers. Here I call them pickers. anyway, it makes the process much longer and painful, and it's hard on your forearms. There's all kinds of stuff with them. So yeah, the new wax is always something I look forward to. The old wax is always something I dread. Now, the automatic extractor, my motor spinner, makes the other thing we haven't talked about is that when you extract that honey, it's so viscous. It's so thick that it's really hard to hand crank it. But if you have an automatic extractor, you turn it on, you set it at 9, and you walk away for 5 minutes, and it does a great job of spinning it all out, and you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So
fancy
motorized
extractors. I still got a hand crank 4-frame.
I have a hand crank and another hand crank, and I've got a motorized one. And the motorized one, I should have got it sooner.
Okay, well that's a great. When would you recommend you move from? Like lots of beginners might start with a 2-frame hand crank because now they're like, $40 on Amazon, for your most basic entry level.
Yeah, that rust. But yeah.
But the point is, it's something to extract honey with for your first couple of years. When do you think is a good? How many hives do you have to have? How many pounds of honey is your point where you're like, hey, I'm moving away from a 2-frame?
Oh, I did that. I did that early.
Yeah,
but I did it early because I appreciated the engineering behind Maxent. Maxent makes some really good tanks that you can change the guts on and add motors to. I would probably do that around like 5 or 6 hives. The first time, what ended up happening to me, I think I actually started with a nice crank because I knew I was going to be in it for the long term.
You use mine. And I started with a 4-frame.
Yeah.
The one I borrowed the first year I extracted was a 4-frame. 4-frame Dayton.
I think it was like my second or third year that I bought my own.
I would say 100 pounds.
100 pounds. 100 pounds is when your hands start to cramp, and
I think after you've done 100 pounds on a 2-frame once, if you've done 30 pounds the first year, maybe the second year you did 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds, 60 pounds. And the first time you have to do 100 pounds in a year in one go because you pulled 3 or 4 supers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the point which you're going to be like, nope, I'm not going to do this another year. Spend all this time. Now, if you're a household that's got some children that you can involve in this activity, some 10-year-olds, some teenagers.
Yeah, bring your friends over.
I'm sure you could stretch out that some, but. For me, it's probably, if you're out there listening and you're wondering what's the limit, I'm going to say 100 pounds.
Yeah, sell that honey. Set the money aside.
$10 a pound, 100 pounds, there's $1,000. Go buy you a better extractor.
So that was something that I discussed too over the weekend. And the consensus at the meeting was $1 an ounce is what honey should be selling for.
$1, you're talking about ounce weight.
Ounce weight. So for per pound, $16 per pound should be your minimum price. So if you're listening and you're like, oh, I can sell it for $10 a pound, you can. Sell it for more.
You can get more.
Yeah. So, and then the next step up was, so I did the 3-frame / 9-frame tangential. Are they 9-frame?
I thought it was
3 and 6, 2, 4, 6. No, it's 9-frame because it counts the 3-frame. So the tangentials comb itself is actually angled upward. So that's how they store the honey in there, so it doesn't pour out the side. And you have extractors that are tangential. I can't say the word.
Tangential.
Thank you. Anyway, they are. So they spin the honey out. You set the frame so that the honey spins out of it instead of going just straight out in the centrifuge. It sits.
So the frame, the back of the frame, the top of the frame sits on the outside edge.
There you go.
And the frame points toward the pivot all the way around the extractor.
Yeah, and so
those are the radial ones.
Yeah,
because they all face radially in toward the center.
Yeah,
and those are nice because you don't have to take them out and flip them halfway through your extraction.
It spins both sides.
When you extract it, the honey will fly out both sides. Now you'll have a higher propensity if you're frames aren't wired or foundationed well, you can blow out frames that way because there's no support for them. So you really need to make sure your frames they're well wired, or you're using plastic foundation or something. But what I have was the 4-frame tangential, which the frame sits sideways to the outside of the extractor. And you don't have to spin them as hard because the open cells are facing directly at the outside of the extractor. The problem is all the honey on the inside wants to like squish its way through
the frame.
Yeah. But it does have mine has a nice stainless steel mesh on the basket, so that if somebody that I have failed to mention doesn't need excessive cranking on the first side, you pull those out and there's a nice imprint of that mesh on the side of the frame, and you're really like, didn't need quite that much speed. But on the second side, when you don't have the heavy weight of the honey on the first side,
yeah, it works fine.
You can
mine
turn it up.
Mine has both of those. Mine's a 3-frame, and then you can put 6 frames.
Usually, and that's all in a tub that's probably 19, 20 inches in diameter.
Yes.
Yeah. So this aren't the giant 3 or 4 foot diameter deals where they're all radial.
So I have that too. So that's the one I use for my. That's the one I use mostly right now.
Yeah.
Because I have so much honey that I'm pulling.
So many frames that you're going through.
Yeah.
But a lot of those,
and that one I upgraded to kind of by accident. A friend of ours got cancer, and he was dying, and he wanted out of the beekeeping equipment, and so I just bought all of his equipment, and he had it for 2 hives, which makes 0 sense.
Right.
However, for 100 hives, that one totally is awesome.
And like my 4-frame, I've done 400 pounds on my 4-frame.
That starts to hurt your hand.
And I like to have, I've split that over 2 days, number one, if it's just me and the wife. And if it's not me and the wife, and I've got some friends or acquaintances that want to be part of the honey extraction experience, I can spread that out and we can get it done in a day. And 400 pounds is probably my limit. But as a hobby beekeeper, 400 pounds is about all I want to deal with in a year. Because in terms of trying to get that marketed and sold, I'm not doing craft shows. I'm not doing commercial sales. I'm not doing local business sales. Yeah. So 400 pounds is still a good amount. And, $15 a pound, $10 a pound, that's still several $1,000s every year that, it makes replacements of equipment and bees as needed certainly worthwhile.
Yeah, the last year I used that one by hand, by myself. I think I did 400, I had done 900 pounds that day by myself. And my hands were cramping up because they were tired of holding the knife. The knife has a big square handle to it, so your hands cramp up, and you're tired of standing, and it's hot, and you picked a whole bunch of things because there's areas that you can't get to with the knife well. And that was the year that I thought I don't want to do this with this one anymore. And so then I had the electric one sitting in the corner, but I really liked the manual process of doing it, and I was stubborn and it was dumb. So if you're doing more than, I'd agree. If you're doing more than 400 pounds, then.
But at 400 pounds, right? That's an all day activity. That's mostly an all day activity. By the time I've pulled hives in the morning, pulled supers in the morning, we've cleaned and prepped the kitchen. I still don't have a dedicated honey house at my size, 8 to 10 hobbyists, 4 to 6, 8 hobbyists. If you want to run a 3 or 4 foot diameter extractor, that's a real thing to store, right? That's a real space requirement. And you're now getting to a point where you probably need really need to consider a dedicated space for extracting, because the number of boxes you're going to have sitting around, and the amount of other equipment you're going to need to support, taking 1,000 pounds of honey, that's sort of the steps in terms of development.
Yeah. And we've talked about the transition at 10 hives. At 10 hives, having your own honey house to me is 100% worth it.
We talked about this pregame. I was looking at the 8 hives I have on my property and the other 8 hives I'm responsible for between the club hive and my personal hives that are out there. And I started doing some math because it was super hot the day we had our field day for the local club. It was like, it feels like 97.
Yeah, it was unpleasant.
The air temp was only about 80, 83, 85, but it was like 78% humidity, which meant it feels like was 95. And we were out there sweating, and it was the very typical August beekeeping when it's just punishing to be out there in your bee suit and wanting to work bees, but you're just pouring sweat off of you and getting stung. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to go out there and work 8 hives. How long do you think it would take you to work through a hive in today's environment on your day-to-day basis?
Oh, I've timed myself. So for me, let's talk about supers and no supers. Let's just talk about a double deep.
Yep.
Double deep takes me about 6 minutes, 10 minutes if something's bad, 6 minutes for me to go through and queen right and right pattern and stop and take notes.
How much space they got? Yeah.
Yeah. So all my notes and everything is 6 minutes on the roughly. And that's me not busting my butt. I can bust my butt and go harder and make it shorter, but I usually don't. I'm usually
so. And then, like I was trying to take an inventory of if I wanted to pull honey, how much time was I going to have to dedicate to pulling honey? And I started thinking about it. I'm like 15 minutes. By the time I'm using fume boards and I'm sort of juggling 2 fume boards, one sitting while one's working. I'm working one hive and I got it sitting prepping the next one so it has a good, couple minutes to do the fume board thing. And I'm like, it's probably going to be something like 10 or 15 minutes a hive.
Are you still using Be Quick and stuff?
Yep.
Because there's 2 types of. So a fume board, for those that haven't used one before, it's just like a T-shirt. I use a black T-shirt that I've put onto a piece of plywood.
I don't use any kind of fabric on mine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can do that too. So I used a black T-shirt because it was absorbing light well. And then I spray this stuff. It's called Be Quick.
Be Quick
on it. It smells like amaretto. And for those of you that drink, it smells like amaretto. And they move down away from it. It takes about 2 minutes.
2 minutes
to move away from
to
empty that box.
Full sheet trays.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
restaurant supply full sheet trays, which are big enough to cover an entire top of a box. I've used them as lids before, and so I give it I'll give it like 2 squirts, and that aluminum tray gets nice and hot in the sun, which means it off gas that Be Quick really, really quickly, really effectively, and then I set it on the next hive, and about every 2 hives I'll give it another little refresh squirt, and it off gases really nice because those trays get nice and hot. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, 10 to 15 minutes, which means I'm getting through like 4 hives an hour, which means if I want to pull honey off of 8 hives, it's a 2-hour job. I'm like, then I go to the next site and I had another 2 hours at my next site. I'm like, that's 4 hours of doing nothing but pulling supers, sweating. I haven't even gotten to extract anything yet. I'm just getting boxes off of hives.
You have your queen excluders on those or not?
Yeah. I put
you trapped a queen.
I had overwintered, and I left a medium on top of a double deep because it was full, and it got to be spring, and they were starting to lay it, and I thought, well, I want this to be a honey super, so what I'll do is I'll put another box on because it was early in the spring, our flow came early. So I put 2 more boxes on with it, or maybe just 1 box, and then I put my queen excluder on, expecting to for all the brood to hatch out, and then it becomes a box on top, and it becomes a honey super, and I fixed both my problems. Except I got the queen stuck up there because I thought she was down below, and she wasn't, and so she laid up my honey super that was nice and empty. She was like, "Oh, look, all the empty space. I'll lay all this up." And then I had to go through like another 10 frames to find her, and plucked her off a frame and put her underneath the queen excluder, and then put everything back on top. And then the story's not done. I left open brood up top. He knows where this story is going. And because the open brood up top was well above where the queen was down below, they thought they were queenless.
It's called a Damari split.
And so they took the opportunity to pull queen cells on top of my already queen right box. And so all said and done, while the student that I was advising, who I didn't put queen excluders on, had 3 beautiful brand new supers of beautiful white wax. I have a mixed bag and probably like an entire deep full of honey that I have to deal with that I haven't gotten into. And I was hot, and I was like, you know what? That's going to be a problem for future me when I let all this. So I pulled the queen excluder and just let everything hatch out, and we'll see how it goes.
And that deep full of honey is heavy.
Heavy.
So heavy.
Even the guy with a bunch of years of experience can still get the queen stuck on top of the wrong side of the extruder, which is one of the ways that people will talk about why you shouldn't use one, is because you can risk that. But then again, there are plenty of times when I want to use it, and
it sure shortens the concern that I have when I'm pulling honey. Like that's good. I think queen excluders are tools, and they have their uses. Like when we're dividing up a hive, determining where a queen is.
I tell you what, I have the open apiary days out at the club, and I have hives out there that have 2 and 3 mediums on top, supers on top right now. Some hives have got excluders and others don't. And it is a real difficult conversation to have as to explain why that one does and that one doesn't. Mm-hmm. And with enough time and energy, I could probably come up with a logical explanation as to what I was thinking at the time when I left that one on, and I didn't put one on there. I wanted this one to hatch out with brood. I didn't care about this one because they were all down. I just checkerboarded that one, and they had a ton of space down below, and there was already a honey cap started with another box, so I put another one on top, and all of these things that sort of work into the years of experience you pull together, and to try to communicate that in a short period of time that you have out in the apiary when you're hot and sweaty and just trying to move through some hives, it's a really difficult conversation.
Mine boils down to just cut comb. If I have a hive that I want to pull cut comb off of, then I need to put a queen excluder in.
And you're starting those off of basically starter strips, though, right? Or you get some thin foundation.
I have thin foundation too.
Thin surplus.
Thin surplus, yeah. I have thin surplus. And then starter strips. They pull them out almost at the same rate. And the ones that the difference where I see significant difference for how fast they pull stuff out is if I wax plastic foundation or not. But thin surplus, it's almost the same rate as them pulling it out by themselves. Now, they tend to stick more to brood size brood size comb rather than filling it with drone comb if you do the thin surplus.
Most of my cut comb frames are, I want to say starter strip, but the reality is the first year you're going to start it off a starter strip, but then when you do your cut comb chunks, the square chunks, if you orient them toward the bottom of the frame, it'll leave like a 1-inch strip of
right across the top.
Across the top, and I just leave that on there.
Yeah, I do that too.
And then I leave it wet and stick it back in the hive, and then that's my air quote starter strip is just a 1-inch strip of drawn wax at the top, and they just keep drawing from that. But I have plenty that draw that in drone comb and fill it with honey.
Yeah. And which either way,
which is fine, right? It's more efficient for them to draw the larger cell size just to stick honey in because it uses less wax.
I will say that my experiment with the jars on top of the they really are not interested in filling those out.
They are not.
They're not interested. They are not. Oh, they're in there, but they're not doing anything.
Speaking of which, did you put your flow hives on this year?
Oh. My lack of response should be enough. No,
I
hold on, I put a super on top of that that hive that has had a flow hive on it that's not produced honey. It's been 2 years since I've had that.
Know.
It hasn't produced any honey. I put a super on top. I pulled the super off in spring.
Yep,
because it's full of honey.
So, did you ever get around to waxing the frames?
I didn't wax them.
No. We talked about how strong of a spring flow we had. I was short supers because I had them spread around. I had way more overwintered hives than I've ever had before, and I was sort of short on, so I had them spread pretty thin. And I saw the flow hive sitting there in the yard, and I thought, oh, I could throw that on the spring. Did I ever get around to doing it? No, I did not.
No.
So I feel bad because
I know we have a listener that's like, you know what? I would use your flow. She's sitting there going, I would take those.
She's yelling at the radio right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talked about ISBA earlier. You had gotten asked to speak.
Yeah.
So you drove down to Springfield here in Illinois, where the Illinois State Beekeepers Association has their annual meeting.
This is their annual summer meeting. I guess they have like 2 or 3.
Do they?
They have a spring, I think, or they at least have a summer and a fall. There's at least 2.
This is the meeting where they elect officers?
No, there was. Well, maybe there was election. I wasn't there for the election. I don't know. I did not see that in the schedule. So I don't think that was the one.
Maybe
I think that's the fall.
That's the fall.
Yeah.
Regardless, you were there. They asked you to speak.
Yep.
And you spoke on?
I spoke on transitioning from a hobbyist to a sideliner. And for those that don't know what a sideliner is, it's basically a small business. And then above sideliner is kind
commercial.
Is commercial. I think there's a little phase in there that's in between that transitions there.
From what? Like small commercial to major commercial?
Like small business to like medium business, and then there's commercial.
Oh, I don't know that I would have ever made the distinction there.
Because I think I'm a sideliner right now, but am I running? I've gone to another apiary that's bigger than that's like 2 hours from here. That's bigger than me, and I would call him
bigger in terms of running more hives than you.
Running more hives than me. Yeah, I think he runs 300.
Yeah.
And he has. I have the one automatic extractor. He's got an auto decapper, which cuts the wax off the top of the frames automatically, and then he's got 4 auto extractors.
Your businesses are focused on different things, though.
They are.
It sounds like his heavily focuses on honey extraction, where a major source of your income is just the beekeeping services, right? You know, you're the pool guy for the beehives. with shirtless and walking around in my swim trunks. I mean, protective gear is important. PPE. Yeah,
so that's what I talked about. How I went from hobbyist to sideliner. It was interesting to go up there to talk to some. There was at least one commercial guy up there. So he was really interesting to talk about the differences and what benefits sideliners have compared to commercial, and what benefits like a hobbyist has to a sideliner. And those are very different worlds.
I think it basically boiled down to definition of time management, right? The hobbyist, you sort of consider having all the time in the world. If you want to go out there and spend an hour in a hive, you certainly can do that. You know, you've got 2 to 4, and you're going to spend as much time out there as you want to spend. As a sideliner, you're really starting to focus on what's my time worth, right? Because I got a limited number of hours in the day, and at the end of the day, I am trying to make a living off of this, so I have to start watching.
Or maybe not a living, maybe just a side income.
Yeah, but my point is, you're now needing to make something out of that time, and nobody wants to work for $5 or $10 an hour in today's world. And so, what is your time worth? But at the same time, and so as a sideliner, right? You sort of got you start to really focus on, am I being time efficient, and what am I getting paid for that? And as a commercial guy, that's what you're all focused on, right? It's all how many hours versus how much payback I'm getting for that. And so they're really focused on what are my processes to reduce the amount of time versus the amount of dollars I'm going to make for that time. And really, along the way, the other side of that equation is the quality of the various things that you're going to extract along the way, right? How much time are you putting into your honeys? Are you going to keep each one of your yards individually separate in buckets because each one of those yards can produce a noticeably different honey versus a commercial guy where it's just a blend out of his, 500 hives, 1,000 hives.
Yeah, not even just yards, the seasons as well out of those yards. And the commercial guy also, they usually, from what I've seen in my years of doing this and talking to them, is they have something they focus on. So we've got a friend down south, and I would say that his main focus is on cutouts. And he focuses on cutouts. The honey's there, and it's kind of, he sells it, but really the main income is driving his business is cutouts.
And in the spring, he's got a nice side gig of providing splits and nukes and things.
Yeah.
To people in the area that come and get those from him.
Yeah.
And we've said for a long time that as sort of the sideliner, you start to have, you can't really be focused on just one thing, right? You need to do some splits, you need to do some queens, you need to do some honey.
Yeah. In the sideliner, I think I have a couple things that are a highlight, not a focus. Whereas commercial guys will be, I'm a commercial pollinator. That is what I am, a pollinator.
Oh, and you had the guy you ran into that did nothing but wax.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a guy who I went on a trip to when I went to Cuba, and he actually, I don't think he even had bees. He just bought and sold wax. That's like, to me, that's a business, but I technically, he knew his way around a beehive. He was a beekeeper, but what his focus was wax. So I think that the larger you get, the more you focus on a income source, because you can skin it down to like, this is what makes me the most money, and this is the process I use to make me that most money.
It's come up in our discussions before in terms of as you grow in the beekeeping world, it seems to become less and less about beekeeping and more about a business, in the sense that you could take an MBA, right? A business degreed individual that's going to run a commercial beekeeping company, because all of the workers that are in like that MBA person may never touch the hive. He may know the processes involved of how to make that product into dollars that makes money. But at the end of the day, how many hours is he spending in the hive? Sure, there's Canadian beekeeper who's out there every week being hands-on in hives, but I'm sure there's other commercial operations where the guy at the top is spending his time out behind a phone, making phone calls and setting up sites and working spreadsheets and banking dollars.
Even as a sideliner, I have days, usually it's every 2 weeks, I have a day of the week where I tell my guys, these are the things you're going to be doing. I have to do paperwork.
Yep.
I'm checking numbers. I'm making sure orders were filled. I'm answering emails if there's somebody upset.
And I know you get a ton of phone calls from clients.
I get a ton of phone calls from clients. And to the point where there are days, and the phone calls come and go. There are days that I'm just slammed with phone calls, and I'll eventually have to unplug, and I've got to go do the stuff I got to do. And there's some days that are nothing. There's just lightweight.
But we also talked about like sort of bee adjacent businesses, right? Like there's an idea that, hey, maybe I'm just focused on mead, right? I really enjoy mead. I love making mead, and I think there's a market for mead. Could you be the mead maker person and never touch a beehive because you just source your honey from the local beekeeper? I think
I'm sure
that probably could exist.
Yeah. I would be, as a consumer though, and somebody that likes mead, I'd be much happier with the guy that makes his own mead, that has like at least 1 or 2 hives, that understands the process of that honey before it gets to him. So he has an understanding of both sides of that equation. And I think there's, and maybe that's just me being snobby, but
at the end of the day, right? Like to me, how the honey is made probably doesn't impact his focus is on the mead making process. It's his yeast that he's choosing to use, his fermenting style, and
but I at least
time and temps, and
I want him to know the blood that goes into that the honey making process.
But I'm sure if you just sat him down and went, and did a tasting, and he's like, I'm going to make this mead with that flavor honey, and I'm going to make this mead with that flavor honey, right? All he's looking at is barrels of honey that have flavors to them. And does his final output of meads really depend on knowing the life cycle of the queen and how many days it is before she hatches?
No. I just want him to better appreciate the starting ingredients, right? I still like Bud Light. And I don't think Bud Light has any idea what goes in with the grain, the farming process of making that grain.
But I don't think your average drinker does either.
But your average drinker doesn't. But as I think your mead consumers, I don't know. I guess I should frame it as, for me, as somebody that likes mead, I would prefer my meadery to understand the sweat and time that went in, not just me, but the bees making that honey that made the mead that's in my glass. I also want them to know how to yeast and all the rest of the stuff, right? I want them to know flavor profiles because I've made mead and I don't know yeast. And hey, that mead, not the best thing in the world.
I have not made it, but I've sat through several presentations of people that were very passionate about it, and it was very clear in the talk that they gave that the numbers and kinds of yeasts that you can get for the mead making world has expanded significantly through modern technology.
There is, and there's basically two main ones that I think that are like the base of mead. In fact, one of the guys I talked to at this ISBA meeting is one day wants to have a meadery and makes his own mead currently. And I got into a discussion with him about some Belgian yeasts, because Belgian yeasts for beer have a real banana taste to them, but they also like high temperatures to survive. And mead traditionally likes a really low temperature to survive as far as that yeast, so it doesn't taste like fingernail polish. And so I was like, hey, how come no one's used this? Because one, it takes care of the high temperature, and two, it would impart an interesting banana. Like a banana with, when I think of bananas, I usually think of banana splits.
Sir,
and I'm getting way down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, anything banana, I'm out. I'm just not banana. Listen, of all the runts you're gonna have, the bananas are the ones that are always left over.
I love the bananas.
Nope,
I love the bananas.
Everybody at the radio is like, nope.
Yeah, well, and the new property has the Midwest banana.
Have we told people about the new property?
I don't know.
I don't think you have.
Okay.
This has been a recent acquisition since the last podcast.
Yeah, we have Lot B is going to be the working title for it right now.
Okay.
Lot B. We bought a 8-acre wooded property to expand the apiary for an outyard. I'm pretty happy with it. It is mostly hardwoods, and it's going to require a lot of work to get it up to what I want it to be. But it's
I guess we briefly talked about site selection for an outyard and access, and I know some of those things we're going to struggle with at the start, but we'll get there. We'll get to a point where it gives you an opportunity to do some different stuff on that yard than you'll be able to do here at your regular apiary.
I'm definitely going to have to pay more attention to small hive beetles. It has more shade than my main apiary does. It's got a few spots that are already got light access to it, and I have some high hopes. It'll be fun. It's definitely a project. If I was bored during winter ever before, I will not be bored now.
Go cut firewood.
I can go cut firewood. I can dig and flatten areas, and I guess I'm going to learn how to use a bobcat, I'm sure.
His dad's got some equipment for him to
play
use
with
in off time. Yep.
One
of the notes we had from earlier in the show was at the yearly field day the club puts on. We usually bring a speaker in. This year's speaker was a second-year grad student, Haley. She was currently doing research on the Israeli Acute Paralysis Virus, IAPV. So she gave a very interesting talk about her research she's currently ongoing concerning the effects of how aggressively IAPV might grow when also exposed to the juvenile hormone that's in bees that's sort of triggered during the early development phases after they emerge. The hypothesis was the IAPV would have a higher impact with higher doses of juvenile hormone. Sort of everybody's growing quickly, that would include the virus. And so her research so far has suggested that perhaps maybe it's sort of not really impacted by that as much as they thought it might be. The slides that she was showing, as I interpreted, was no statistical correlation between those two. It was interesting to ask her questions about how they are currently testing. They sort of apply a high dose of the IAPV that they grow in the lab.
They actually inject it, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the thing that surprised me, was the small micropipette injection sort of thing that she gave the bees that were measured.
And I also asked about whether or not she was testing for other viruses, deformed wing virus and things like that. I knew from our previous discussions with Dalent Animal Health that had developed the AFB vaccine that they were seeing some carryover benefits for the other viruses that bees carry, and they were using the standard CRISPR methods for blending up the bees and looking at how much virus was in their samples and whether or not she was taking those same samples and running other virus detection methods on them to see what other viruses they had. And she certainly had the opportunity to do that. However, they had yet to do that.
I think they didn't have the funding for it, was what I got from that.
At the time she was presenting the results of the current only handful of tests that she had done, they didn't have the funding, but they had just recently secured the next round of funding, and that she said that was potential for her to look at in the coming year.
Yeah, I'm more excited about that. I was really happy that she showed up. I thought she was a good speaker. She did a good job.
And she had some other interesting notes about IAPV and how it in fact impacts the local pollinators.
Yeah,
I guess there was an additional grad student looking at the populations of local pollinators, local bees that weren't just Apis mellifera, and what the carryover might be between managed colonies and the local pollinators. And the results so far have been they cannot determine any noticeable impact of managed colonies in the area of local pollinators. And sort of, if you bring in managed colonies, sort of, are they bringing bad viruses to our local pollinators, and they're not able to determine that to be the case.
Yeah, they didn't see any real good correlation between that. For those that are beekeepers that are listening, they're like, what is IAPV? What does it even look like? It looks like a greasy bee.
Oh yeah.
They lose their fur. They die. They get. It looks a lot like.
I don't think I've ever seen this
paralysis syndrome. I think it's the stuff that when they look old and they have the paralysis.
Yeah.
When they have high mite counts in a hive, they get like a greasy look on them. I think I've seen. It may be that. It may be the acute paralysis syndrome.
Yeah.
From mites. But that's generally the picture that she showed that I saw. That's what it looked like. The other thing is how it's spread. It's spread with cleaning and trophallaxis between bees. So as they
that was mainly the way they spread most of their diseases anyway.
It is, but I just wanted to be clear for people who are like, oh, what do I do about it? And the thing you do about it is don't have mites.
Don't have mites
because it's spread via mites as well.
But we knew that because we've talked about it before, and basically the number of viruses that are spread and the additional pressure that is put on the hive from them usually means bad things. In the news is where we talk about, we try to bring attention to some beekeeping items that have popped up in the news recently. I have an article here talking about some new research concerning the wax found in queen cells. Now, if you were to tell me that the wax found in queen cells is different than the rest of the wax on a frame, I believe you because I've handled quite a few queen cells in my time, and from handling them, they've always felt different.
They feel different. The wax slightly looks different. It almost and oftentimes it's way dirtier. But I think that's just because the bees are handling it so often. It has nothing to do with the wax itself. But the article is really fascinating.
Also, always feels stiffer.
It does feel stiffer, and I think it's a thicker wax too.
Yep.
But it has hormone differences. It has temperature differences. The thing I found most interesting was that in order for the bees to shape that wax, because it's a different wax, it has different temperature differences, they have to increase their body temperature.
I can read the quote. To mold this special high melting point wax, these young bees have to turn their bodies into tiny living furnaces, heating their thoraxes to over 39 degrees Celsius or 102 degrees Fahrenheit, like running a fever. So, yeah, it's significantly...
102 is a really high for the honeybees. So it's really neat. It's a neat thing. Well, how will it change the way we keep bees? I don't know.
I don't think it is. But they were also making note that there also to be slight chemical differences where they were talking about bees raised sort of the emergency queen cells that were drawn off the sides that had contact with regular worker cell wax seemed to have produced less. The quality of the queen was not as good as queens raised in
specific
pure queen cell cup wax, which I found interesting. That anecdotally, we always seem to think that our supersedure queens are not as good as grafted or
well, I think usually grafted are. If I had to rank my queens, I would go with swarm cell queens.
Yep.
And then grafted.
Yep.
And then supersedure.
Yep.
And in that, now there's some scientific backing on why that may be more true than what I thought.
Yep. And it turns out there's probably a whole host of reasons for that, including the wax type that the cell is made of.
Yeah.
We had previously talked about the benefits of off-season feed, replacement pollen patties, or dry pollen sub. And we had mentioned in the past that there was a yeast product that was being tested and tried out, and apparently the idea that the yeast product probably had a better collection of vitamins, minerals, proteins,
fats,
all of the things.
Yeah, more closely related to pollen than our other feeds are.
And I guess there's been some more research on this, and the research it's said exactly what we thought, where the yeast is better.
Yeah, the closer you get to pollen feed, the closer you can look like that, the better your results are, and significantly better. Like 50% increase in survival rates through winter.
A lot of pollen subs are various flours, and by flours I mean like ground soybean or ground wheat, those kind of flour, like bread flour, like baking flours, not like the smelly little, out in the yard kind. So yeah, the yeast is being better than the various flours for the base of the pollen sub.
This brings up a point too. So I harvest pollen. Usually it's to sell, but I have leftover pollen almost year to year, and I will feed that back with some. Usually you can put sugar water in there. You can put honey in there too. I'll make a little patty and feed it back. They will consume that 100% faster, always faster. If I put that in and a pollen patty in, they will eat all of the pollen first, and then if there's none of that left, they'll go to a pollen patty. So that's another thing for those of you that are continuing beekeeping, continuing your journey there. If you're going to harvest pollen and save it, you need to dry it, you need to save it, and then you can feed it back to them. Freeze it. And then my favorite way to harvest that is the Epimundi, I think, is what they're called. They're a really nice little screen bottom board. Again, not paying me for this. Although if you guys are listening, I would happily take some more of those green bottom boards that fit wooden boxes really well. But they have all kinds of stuff built into them, including a pollen harvester.
Honeybee Hotline is where we answer questions that we get. Some come in through our students we mentor. Some come in through email. This happens to be an email question that came in, and it has some questions that sort of were pointed toward beekeeping as a service.
Hold on, we got to point out this is the second email we've got. So our email does work.
Yeah.
So this is Derek actually asking this question. So shout out to Derek. Thanks for emailing us. But yeah,
always shocked when Luke finds out we have actual listeners out there.
I am always shocked. I mean, there are numbers, and we can see the numbers of people that listen. But you know,
it's always fun.
Bots run rampant. So
always fun to run into the people in real life.
Yeah.
Your beekeeping as a service, the pool guy for the hives.
That's me.
How did you figure out how to personally value your time and resources when pricing hive management? We talked about this earlier. It's one of those things you really have to focus on.
Yeah, and you really have to determine a value for your own time and yourself. I landed at $50 an hour. The guy that I had a talk with, Andy, the guy that I had a talk with over at ISBA, thought I was crazy and that it should be $100 an hour. But $50 an hour was a fine spot for me. I'm not using this to
my dad
raise a family.
When he was doing craft show stuff and working in the shop making spoons, wooden spoons, he was $1 a minute, $60 an hour.
Yeah.
So somewhere in that range is probably where you're going to need to be if you're looking to set out on a journey to be more than just selling some honey on the side. Is probably that neighborhood. Do you charge an installation or setup fee when you're doing management?
I do. I wrap it into, so in my business, the people come to me and they want equipment. They usually want bees, but they want bees that I'm managing for them. And for that setup fee, that first year, I include mileage, I include the bees, I include the equipment, and I include my time.
I would say 99% of the time, the people haven't already set up their own hive and say, "Come, please put bees in it." They probably approach you and be like, "We want a hive," and you're like, "How many hives you want?" And they want 2 hives. And you're like, "Great, I'll show up Tuesday with 2 hives. Here's what it's going to cost you," and they don't care that you've gotten Man Lake wouldn't wear or Dayton wouldn't wear or Hilco wouldn't wear.
I care because I'll get. Sometimes they say, "Oh well, if I provide my own hives, it'll cost less, right?" And so now I don't mess with that anymore because I've gotten the Temu knockoff ones that are not
fit frames.
That don't fit frames and they're not painted and the equipment's it's 8 frame instead of 10 frame.
So there you go. You can if you're gonna you can work that into your management where you will provide the equipment for them, so you are aware
I'm
sure
comfortable.
that
I'm comfortable with that equipment. I've used it before. I don't have to make fixes to it. All that stuff.
Do you work with communities that require permits or licensing for beekeeping? I know the answer to this one.
Yes, painfully yes. And basically any cost that's going to be for setting up for an area, that has to get passed on to the customer. It is their bees at the end of the day, right? Because I'm selling all that stuff to them to
you're
move
just the pool
liability.
guy. They still own everything in the backyard.
Yeah.
It's still their pool, still their water.
If the pool costs, if you have a yearly fee, $50 for your pool, hey, you get a yearly fee tagged right on. I do also register their hives. That's not really asked because I don't think Missouri has. He's out of Missouri. I don't think Missouri has state beekeepers.
State of Illinois.
State.
I want you to free
inspectors.
Free registration, and they want to know where you are.
So I register all my hives so the inspector knows where they are.
Have you figured out what your service radius you found to be manageable? I think in the past you've been fairly open to that, with the understanding that after a certain distance, you tell the client, "Hey, I'm going to have to charge you mileage."
I charge mileage on all of them. Every client gets charged mileage, and then mileage changes every year. This year it's 70 cents a mile, which is crazy.
Did you
expensive.
start out that way? I didn't think you started out that way. I thought you were originally where
I originally started. I still have I have 2 customers when I originally started, and I didn't start with her that way. And then the farm that this was on, I didn't do that for. And I quickly realized that the amount of money that I was losing in not charging mileage for the upkeep of my vehicle, it ate into my profits too much. I have to charge somewhere to retain some of that money. So yeah, I
got to differentiate. Like they're thinking, well, I'm already paying you $100 an hour to be at the hives. And you're like, yeah, that's to be at the hives.
Yeah,
I still got an hour to get there and back. What about how to, like, it's still my time.
Yeah, still my wear in my vehicle.
Right.
And that requires upkeep. So yeah, I charge mileage now.
Last but not least, how often do you typically visit client hives throughout the year?
Every 2 weeks is my max. If I haven't been there in 2 weeks, I'm not doing something's wrong. And usually something goes wrong in that time frame. I also need to communicate. I need to touch base with that customer every 2 weeks to remember, hey, I'm still here. I'm taking care of your hives. Things are going good, or things are going bad. And
how many clients are you sending like little? It's like doggy daycare where every week they get a little photo of the dog playing with the other dogs.
I used to do that. The clients didn't read them. They didn't think it was super interesting. I'm moving towards wanting to do videos. Right now, I do videos for hive checkups for people, and those so far there's been positive feedback on that.
Well, you've got clients that have some like literally in their backyard, so they could walk out and see them any day they want to anyway. So they kind of know, hey, my hives are out here and they're doing things. But you also have clients that have hives that are in fields very far removed from their everyday life.
Yes.
So they may never ever see them unless they make a special trip to go out and see them. And so I guess if they're a client that has it in their backyard, they probably have an understanding of what's going on with their hive on a day-to-day basis because they can look out and see that, oh, there's more supers on top of my hive.
Well, and I get calls from those as well because they have coffee with them. They go out and sit on their porch and they watch their bees fly. And I'll get calls.
Man, I tell you what, I love to sit there and watch an entrance. And what was we coming in with pollen, and why is there no activity today? And there was no activity this day at 9 o'clock, and 2 hours later, like the entire front of the box is full. Like, what's going on?
Yep. Yeah. So I get calls pretty regularly, or texts. Usually it's texts now from those customers that are out at the hives every day. The ones that aren't at the hives every day, that go out there, that usually it's on a secondary site, and they go there for like a vacation thing. I'll get texts if they're out there of just, hey, I'm just watching, because you can watch. My favorite thing to do, I do like watching entrances, don't get me wrong, but one of my favorite things to do is I like to watch them as they fly off, and you can catch their light catch them as their wings hit the light, and they've got this ongoing coming and going of this airport-ish. It's just a really pretty thing. I really like it in my apiary too, especially because the sun sets in the west, so you can see the sun setting and you see the bees coming and going. So
I have a sort of a unique setup in my yard. The hives are downhill from where you sit. The top house is on a hill. It slopes down the backyard. There's a creek at the bottom, and it slopes back up the hill on the backside. Backside's all wooded. Front side's open. And then up by the house is shaded underneath a big tree. We sit out there underneath the shade by the house. So that's in shade. The center area of the yard is in bright sun. And then the shaded hillside behind you and the very back is all dark because it's shaded. It's green. It's all dark. And so what you do is you wind up with this really high contrast between the bees that fly in the sun, left and right, east to west, and they're on a perfectly black background, which if you're on just like open area, like there's just blue sky behind you, right? There's no backdrop. So it's really hard to pick out the bees because they don't stand out against anything. But with my yard, I got that background, and I had some friends over and they were standing there looking at it like, holy crap, you can really see your bees flying. And I'm like, I happen to have a unique situation where it makes the actual bees flying super easy to see.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of fun to stand out there and watch them.
Yeah. Yep. And so something else that I offer those customers that I'm offering this year for the first time is I have contacts with some universities that are doing pollen samples. So I'm taking some pollen samples, especially I think we talked a few episodes ago that I pulled honey, and most of my honey was spring honey, but this one site with spring honey that was dark brown.
What?
It tastes like spring honey, and it's mahogany-ish brown. It's dark brown. And so I asked them, I said, hey, I'm really interested in this. Are you interested in me sending this off to be analyzed as a sample? And the response was, absolutely. Please bill me for getting that tested. So so that's something that I am going to do. I'll start adding that as hey, here's an option. Would you like to have your honey tested? And would you like to know more? Sort of thing. And it was something I hadn't considered before. As a beekeeper, I want to know, but I hadn't considered my customers may want to know. And that's something that may have some benefit and growth going forward.
Yeah, it's sort of a unique, marketable add-on for the business, right?
Yeah, I also want to get my own microscope and then do an analysis of the pollen so that I can see and learn how to do that. But
I saw the microscope upstairs.
I'm running out of time. So if I could just get some more time. Yeah. Again, it goes back to that our conversation earlier about sideliners and everything else. You need to have time.
You got to hire some help to go out there and do some of those inspections for you.
Yeah.
Turns out,
yep,
those are hard to come by.
It's hard to get people to do exactly what you want them to do the way you do it, or basically the way you do it.
Droning on is the last segment of the show where we talk about what we're going to be coming up in the next 2 weeks in the bee yard. I think you're going to be doing some more grafting. With one of the notes from around the yard this week was you had already done some grafting.
Yep.
But I think you're going to do some more.
I am. I'm gonna see. In fall, I continuously get requests for people that are out of their queens gone or whatever else. I've been grafting for myself now. I guess this is year 3 or 4, something like that. I've been grafting for myself for a while now, and that's for queen replacement for my hives, or if I need to do splits or things like that. I'm going to be doing. I would like to use some micro nukes. I haven't used those yet.
Mini mating nukes, sir.
Yeah, micro nukes sounds like micro machines, and micro machines were fun in my youth. But mini mating
nukes, I think, are the actual product name. If you want to go look them up online,
they are.
It's like a little teeny tiny styrofoam cooler.
Exactly. That is exactly what it looks like. It looks like if you could fit a beer in there, I'd be surprised. But I'm going to be using some of those. I have some of those that I bought. Probably 10 years ago and never used because I thought, hey, this will be great. This is one of those equipment purchases that I didn't know what was going on, and it was a poor choice. So I'll be using those. I've already put the frames together. I've dipped them in wax.
You got your queen castles you got what, 4 queen castles right now?
I've got 4 queen castles. They're all going. I actually pulled some queens out of there and sold 2 of them. I thought they were really good queens.
And you're going to just let them make new queens directly off of whatever open brood was in there?
I had some queen cells that were already being pulled.
Oh, speaking of queen cells, how did the queen cells from the cutout make out?
Like half of them survived.
I mean, it's still pretty good turnout, though.
It's pretty good turnout,
especially given the handling we had, the temperatures we had.
Yeah, we didn't manage temperatures well. We didn't handle the handling real well. 2 of them hatched like way past the date I expected. Yeah. And I was going through the hive.
We had some that emerged while we were in the process of cutting them off the comb.
Yeah. And 2 hatched like they had to have hatched a week after. I missed them. They hatched and I missed them. Yeah. And then they died. They've since died. And I was shocked that I was going through cells because I was going to give them to our local research groups to analyze, hey, maybe this is black queen virus or whatever else. What's wrong with them? Maybe we mishandled them. Probably we mishandled them. So I donated those away, and then I found 2 that had died, had hatched, and were dead. I thought, oops, I missed those 2. But about half made it, and then from those half that made it, I think like 70% of them survived and laid well.
Well, I mean, there you go. And then, didn't you also get an influx of like 15 virgin queens that were caught by someone we knew?
Yeah.
And you sent me a picture of like 15 queen clips spread out on top of a something or other.
Yeah. Those all have done great. So those are all in
threw those
boxes.
in the Queen Castle or something to get mated, and
I threw some of them in Queen Castles. I made splits off of other ones, and I had roughly I think those were like an 80% take rate. A couple of them were like, no, we don't like her, and the strangest one was they didn't like her. They were not queen right, so I knew the hive wasn't queen right. But I put them in within the 2 days. We didn't release her, and then we waxed all of the sides of the queen cage closed. so the ultimate cold shoulder for bees.
Psyllium propolis.
Yeah, it was a, hey, we don't like you specifically, and closed it. And so yeah, it's just always, it's a process. It would be really neat to see what the big queen rearing folks that really know what the hell they're doing with queen rearing. That would be like a cool field trip. But I haven't had that field trip yet.
I thought you had that coming up.
No, I missed it. That was
What?
the same day. That was the same day as the Heart of Illinois beekeeping meeting.
Oh,
So I didn't go. I sent my regrets because I was instrumental in their speaker, and I needed to make sure that she got paid for her time and things like that. So I ended up having to bow out.
Well, if you enjoyed all the topics for the show, we appreciate you hanging out for everything. If you've got any feedback you want to send us, check us out in the email and send us questions. Give us any comment, feedback. If you get any products that you want us to review, we're happy to do that. And remember, every beekeeper needs a buddy. We hope you found one of yours right here.